Hi, it's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and I thought I'd do a quickie video here showing you some of the projects I've been working on lately. And I'm going to start right off the bat with the thing hanging behind me. And what this is called the Giant Dahlia. And I'll just hold it out here so you can get a little better idea of what it's all about. Giant Dahlia, this is a tablecloth, but it's quilted and it's layered like a quilt. And I took a class on how to do this. And basically, I took the class because I wanted to learn how to do Y seams, because there are some Y seams in this. Not a lot, but a few in and around here. And I have done curves before, and these are curved pieces, so I knew how to do those. It turned out okay, but I don't think I would make another one. This one I found to be very, very tedious to make. And really, I don't have any other use for it. Now, it could be made into, the pattern had several designs. It could be made into a quilt. It could be made into a Christmas tree skirt. This is a tablecloth. You can make it into a wall hanging, whatever. It did take a special set of templates that were very, very expensive. They ran about $75 for the set of them. But I have seen them. That was actually a very good price because I have seen them on YouTube for about $90, and that's kind of expensive. And overall, between the fabric, how much the class cost, the templates, and all of that, this has really cost me close to about $300 to make. It sits on my bistro table in my rec room because it's a round table and it fits just perfectly there, and that's where it's going to sit. But like I said, it's a one-off. I don't really think I would make another one. But I'm glad I took the class because the instructor was excellent and I did learn quite a few things. So, speaking of different projects, let's talk about some of my charity work. Well, it's actually the charity work of my guild. And one of those things, and I mentioned this on my blog, but I'm going to point this out in a little bit more detail, was to make walker bags. And this is a walker bag with a luggage tag on it. And I'll say more about that in a minute. So let's just take this luggage tag off. This is what it looks like. And I guess the whole idea here, there's Velcro on the inside. And this just hangs over the handle of the walker somehow. And then the person can stick things in it. Now, I'm going to tell you something about this. I'll not make another one of these either again. And why is that? Well, there's also a pocket on the inside. Trying to show this to you. There's a pocket here on the inside. And you know what might be a little easier to do is if I move the camera down there. That might be better for you to get a good look at this. Okay, so here were some of the problems I had with it. First of all, it did come with instructions. Now, there are volunteers at the guild who had pre-cut the fabric to the right size, and somebody wrote up these instructions as to how to put it all together. I have never done one before, so part of the problem I had was the fact that I was new to this concept. However, I have made bags before, and this had the basic principles. It has a lining inside the bag, and you turn it inside out for the lining and all that kind of stuff, and that I didn't have any problem with. What I did have a problem with was a set of the instructions that I'll talk about in a minute that involved this thing. And this thing I will explain as well. So, the other problem I had with this was the fabric that was provided. This is upholstery fabric, and it's not even good upholstery fabric, and it did nothing but fray as you were trying to sew it. It was miserable to work with, especially when you're trying to put a lining inside, as in the case here. Also, this little pocket that's on the inside of it, well, the fabric that came with this pre-cut was similar to this fabric. And again, because it was such a smaller piece, you had to do some turning inside out with it. It just went to pieces. So I found some more fabric of my own from my own stash and created my own pocket on the inside, which helped. Okay, so it did get the pocket that you were asked to create, just not with the fabric they provided, which I don't think is going to really bother anybody. Some of the instructions were very difficult to understand. They were talking about sewing around the curve. Well, which curve? There's a lot of curves in this. Putting the Velcro on, that wasn't too much of a problem at all with that. But then we come to this. Now, what is this, you may say? Well, they call this a luggage tag. This, again, is not the fabric that was provided because, well, let me read you the instructions for making the luggage tag. Layer as follows: batting, comma, white/cream folded, comma, bias tape, comma, then outside fabric placed right side down. The bias tape is placed with both raw ends even with the outside edge of the fabric, and the rest of the tape tucked inside between the fabrics. Sew around the edge, leaving a small opening at the bottom or side. Turn right side out through the opening, press well, and top stitch around the luggage tag. Okay, part of these instructions I didn't have any problem with. But that first part was talking about the layering. Batting. Okay, they gave me a piece of batting. White/cream. Yes, they gave me a piece of fabric that was kind of an off-white, a cream. But it says folded. Well, it wasn't folded, and if I had folded it, it wouldn't have fit. I didn't get that at all. They had bias tape. Bias tape was for these handles. Well, I have never really worked with bias tape before, but I did discover something about bias tape. It must be made from something like polyester because it melts. So you were to take it and fold it the way you would make handles for a regular bag. You know, you take your strip of fabric and you fold it down the middle, then fold each edge into the middle, then fold it over again and press it. Well, I tried that. Don't, because the stuff melts. And I very quickly found that out. As soon as I touched the iron to it, it started to crinkle up and melt. So then I decided to use a pressing cloth on it. That was of no help whatsoever either. Bias tape is also very, very thin. It was very difficult to work with. So I scrapped that and used a piece of black fabric and just did it according to their measurements. But this was much easier to work with. Now, it says that you were to put these on the inside of the bag, something like this, sew it up and turn it inside out. Well, for the life of me. Now, I have done something like that on other projects, but for the life of me, I could not remember how. And from these instructions, it didn't really help me at all. And there's no diagram. There is a picture on these instructions that really doesn't show you a heck of a lot. In fact, the luggage tag part blends right into the background of the bag that they're showing here in the picture, so you really can't distinguish exactly what they were doing there. So that was of absolutely no help either. So after trial and failures, several of them, I decided to use my own fabric, make my own luggage tag, which is bigger than the one that they had with it. But then I got thinking about it. Why do they want a luggage tag? I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is because they provided a piece of this upholstery fabric and a piece of lighter fabric, and so I put a piece of white on the back of the black, that they could write their name on this. But this would be very awkward for a person using this as a walker bag, at least in my opinion. Now, I don't have a walker, so I'm not really sure. But this is the way they want it in here. So this is hanging off their walker. This is hanging off the walker. They open this up. That falls off onto the floor. They pick it up. They fall onto the floor. Then we got a problem, right? Would have been better maybe if it had been sewn, but there were no instructions telling me to sew this. Like maybe somehow like this. I don't know, but I think this is extremely cumbersome. On top of it all, oh yes, and the way I figured out what they meant here with the handles was I went onto YouTube and I found a video that showed something like this, and I figured it out from there. But I certainly didn't figure it out from their instructions. Now again, not just because their instructions were poorly written, but also because of my lack of experience doing something like this, so it made it doubly difficult for me. So how is this a practical item on a walker bag? I get the point. The point is they can stick things on here and, you know, to their walker bag. But they've got to open this up to put things in. I don't think they're supposed to just, maybe they are. Maybe they're supposed to just shove it in like here in the side. But that doesn't make it very easy because you can't see what you got in here. There's also a pocket in here, so you'd have to feel around for that. So as soon as they open this up and try to shove something in, it's going to slide right off the walker. At least that's how I think it's going to work. So I have no idea. Now the thing is, this is for my guild. People volunteered to cut these out. People volunteered to sew them. They're a charity item. And someone obviously donated the fabric for this. So, you know, you don't want to say too much negative about it. So I'm not going to go in and say, geez, I'm not making another one of those because 1, your instructions suck, 2, your fabric sucks, 3, I don't like the design, 4, the luggage tag is useless. No, I don't think that would go over very well. I'm just not going to do another one. Simple as that. It's a one-off for me. So, charity or no charity, I'm not going through that hell again. So that was one of the charity projects that I did for the Guild. And let me just put this out of our way. And another one that they had, I better put it in the bag. I don't want to lose any pieces because they want the instructions back. Paper's at a premium, you know. Maybe if they revamp the instructions, it would be a little better. I don't know. Okay, so the next charity project was to piece together this quilt. Now, the pieces already came pre-cut to size. It's a very, very simple project. At least I thought so. And you were just to piece it together. It didn't come with any backing or batting. Somebody else will do that. So I followed the instructions, and they were relatively clear, but it looks to me like they were commercial instructions. These other ones with the bag look like somebody in the Guild wrote them up themselves. So it was fairly straightforward. It's just squares in rows. And they had, 4 different kinds of fabric. As you can see right here, they had this Ninja Turtle sort of novelty print. So this is obviously for a child. It's a baby quilt or a toddler's blanket, something like that, I guess. You had strips of these colors, the orange, the blue, and the purple. 2 of them are the same width. One's a little bigger. That's fine. And you took your strips and sewed them together, and then you cut them into 6-inch lengths. Fine, no problem, easy. These squares were already pre-cut. They were 6 by 6. Okay, here is the problem. So I go to start putting the rows together and realize that actually the 6 by 6 squares are slightly bigger than the stripped piece squares. And that's reasonable. Whoever wrote the instructions, or wherever they got them from, didn't take into consideration that after you sew these 3 pieces together, you lose 1/2 inch. You lose a 1/4 inch here, you lose a 1/4 inch here. So they actually worked out to be 6 inches by 5 3/4 inches when I got them finished. This worked out to 6 by 6 inches. So I had to adjust. I had to square this up so it would fit properly. So what I did, there's different methods I could have used, I'm sure. But what I decided to do is I'd sew the row, or sew 2 of the pieces together, one of the stripes, one of the solid block, and then I just trimmed across to make it even. And then I just did the whole row. And that's how I put this whole quilt together. It's a small quilt. It didn't take a lot of time. It's just annoying that things didn't work the way they were supposed to. But I made it work. So no problem there. So it is done. Am I going to do another one of these? Yeah, maybe. But right now, I figure I've done 3 of these projects for the Guild. There's lots of other people in the Guild, strings. And some of them can start working on some of these too for the charities. But yeah, it was a little bit annoying. Now I make sure I put my instructions back, and they have this little piece of not ribbon, it's just a piece of scrap fabric. I've got it together. So there it is. And you put your name on it, who pieced it, and it's quilted by and binding by, and so whatever. So it's all there and it's done. So that wasn't too bad, with the exception that they did not have the pieces quite cut exactly the way they should have been. But, have rotary cutter, will be able to make it work. The third project that is for charity is this quilt. It's a baby quilt. It was just a panel. And they supplied, let's see if you can get a good look at it. I guess that's better. And they supplied the panel, the batting, and the backing, and the binding for all of this. Now, all they wanted me to do was to quilt it. So I did, using my embroidery machine method for quilting. So that worked out okay. No problem with that. So I decided, since the binding was already included with this, that I would bind it as well, because I don't mind binding. Binding's pretty easy. So I did that as well. So now this is a finished quilt. And I might, if I have time, do another one of these, because this, unlike the other two projects, was pretty much very straightforward. No, no problem whatsoever. So that's my contribution to the Guild for volunteer projects. And as I said, I may do some more, but it won't be a walker bag for sure. And I couldn't do another, I can piece another thing together, and I can do another quilting one. But I do have projects of my own. So in about another week's time, I'm off to a 4-day retreat with Ultimate Sewing, which is our local store, our local quilting store, and you've heard me talk about them before. And it's always a great time. It's 4 days long. So of course I've put together about 4 different projects I want to work on. And I've got them all in kit boxes, and I have all of the fabric that I need already cut, pre-cut, ready to go. The instructions are there. One of the things I'm making is this. Well, this is one block of this. This is going to be a bed runner. It may even be a throw quilt. I'm not sure yet. I'll wait to see how many of these blocks I'm able to make out of the fabric that I have. My mother is in a nursing home, and she shares a room with a lady who has a picture of her cat. Of course, she can't have her cat in the nursing home, and I think the cat is still alive, but it's living with relatives now. And you can tell she sort of misses her cat. And so this fabric came into the store, as well as this, that has these lovely colorful cats on it. And this one's paws, it matches with it. So I decided to do a simple design. Just, this is my block, very simple. Fussy cut the center block out of the pussycat fabric, and make the star points out of the paw prints. And then I found some coordinating fabric to go along with this. And so I have 2 of these blocks done. And I think each block measures 12.5 unfinished, 12.5 by 12.5. And I'll put it together something like this. And right now I'm planning to have 12 blocks, and then there'll be a border. That'll make a nice bed runner. But if I've got more of the fabric around in the time, I might add a few more rows to it and make it into a small throw as well. So she can use that at the foot of her bed, or, you know, when she's in her wheelchair or whatever, feeling a little chilly, she can pull this around herself. I was thinking of putting a sashing down between here, but I've decided not to do that now, because I kind of like the design that you get when you put these together. So you have sort of a secondary block involved with this. And it's also less cutting, less sewing to have to worry about, and it'll all go together. I'm not concerned about these blocks. This is actually coming out of a gradient fabric, and it's okay. Whatever way they fall, I think it just adds interest to the overall quilt. So it's kind of fun. So I'll put that together. I will quilt it, and I'll give that to this lady as well. I mean, it's the least I can do for her. She puts up with my mother. Story for another day. If you watch my vlog or Stephen Walter Live, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's one of the projects I'm taking to the retreat. The other project that I'm taking, I have actually 3 other projects I'm taking, but I can only show you the blocks for 2. That was the one, the kitty cat bed runner. This is a pattern, a commercial pattern. It's called Doves of Hope. It makes pretty large blocks. And I forget how many blocks I need, but I have all of the little pieces already cut out. It's fairly involved, but it's mostly half square triangles that are in this. And I have 3 of the blocks made up already. I can't remember if there's a sashing or not. I think there might be between blocks, but they're all identical. And this is my color scheme with it. So I have all of the blocks, or all of the fabric cut, ready to go. And yeah, I should be able to zip through this in no time. Now, I always take more projects than I can actually handle at one of the retreats, but that's okay. I'd rather have too much than too little, because this is sewing 24/7. Well, 24/4, because we're there 4 days. Actually, technically, we're there 3, because it's first day's half day, last day's half day. So but it's still a lot of fun. But you can, at this particular retreat, if you want to sew at 3 o'clock in the morning in your jammies, you can. Walter's going to this as well, and I don't think they want to see Walter and I in our jammies. Enough said about that. But it should be a lot of fun. We went last year and we had a great time at it. I am going to take both of my sewing machines, my embroidery machine and my smaller machine, because I do intend to do some embroidering. I have some embroidery patterns that make animals that are native to Australia, and I still haven't made my Australian quilt yet. I keep saying I'm going to get to it, but I've been collecting things for it. And one of these days I'm going to sit down and put an honest effort into it. But in the meantime, my idea is I'm going to have a few squares in my quilt that have embroidered Aussie animals in it. And so I'm going to take that along with me too, and the threads that I need and stabilizer. And while my one machine is embroidering away, I can be sewing on the other machine. I did the same thing the last year with a different project. So it's like a sweatshop, you might think. Let me just bring the camera up here for a minute. Okay, there we are. So the other thing I've been working on are these. Now this is embroidery, and these are flowers. This is supposed to be an orchid, and this is supposed to be a rose. I've got to make one more leaf for this. I don't like just 2 leaves on it. I think I'll put a third one up here. Now, these are both done as freestanding lace patterns, and then you have to assemble them. The orchid's in 3 pieces, pretty easy to assemble, no problem there. This, on the other hand, was a problem until I figured out how to get to assemble. There are about 5 pieces that make up the rose, and it says in the instructions you're to sew them. I hate hand sewing, and this stuff has water-soluble stabilizer in it. Some of it is washed out, but there's still quite a bit of it in there, and when it dries, it's like brick. And getting a needle and a thread through it is really hard. So I thought, let's glue it. I tried 4 different types of glue. The 4th one was the charm, and that was a glue gun. And the glue gun did work. The other glues just would not stick. They said that they were for fabric. They said that they were quick hold, all this kind of stuff, but I just couldn't get them to stick. Part of it might be my impatience with things like this. I don't know. But anyways, you have to put a stem on it. So I bought some floral wire and some floral tape, and you tape it up. I think it's kind of cute. And now that I've made one, I think I've got the bugs worked out. Just have to add a leaf, like I said. But I think I won't have any problem making another one. And there were some other designs. Walter's already made one rose. He's working on a yellow rose. And I want to make some more of the orchids in different colors and more of the roses in different colors. And then there was a chrysanthemum. He's already got one of those working on it. We'll see how that turns out. And if it turns out okay, I'll probably make one too. What we're trying to do is we have a vase, whatever you want to call it, upstairs, not this one, that we've had at the entranceway to our door, and it's filled with a bunch of silk lilies, red lilies, that cost me a lot of money at the time that I bought them. I think I probably bought them at Michael's. But, you know, they've been sitting there for over 20 years. They're getting faded. They're getting dusty. And it's time to freshen things up. And I don't really like fake flowers in terms of the ones you can buy in the store. You know, they always look a little plasticky, that kind of thing. So we thought, well, I bought some of these embroidery designs online, and I thought maybe we could make our own. And our idea is not to go for realism here. We're going to make our roses and others into all kinds of colors of the rainbow. So basically it's going to be a rainbow bouquet. Blue, yellow, and red, and green, and purple, and pink, all in this. And I think it'll look quite nice. These do take a long time to make, though, I can tell you that. To make the rose, it takes a couple of hours, if not more, and takes pretty much almost, not quite as long, but at least an hour and a half to make one of these as well. And that's your machine going for days. Now, I have discovered something about in the process of making these that is very interesting about embroidery. You know that I did a review on Superb or Super Bee, whichever way you want to call it, embroidery threads that come from a company called Monfil. That's MONFIL.ca. And I did a review comparing their embroidery thread with the brand Floriani that I use most of the time and really like, and have found that it costs a lot less and it's just as good as the Floriani. Well, when you're doing something like freestanding lace items, it's very thread intensive and there's a lot of weaving in and out. And a lot of times I find with the Floriani or with the bobbins that I use, it's not the Floriani so much, it's I use deco bobs, pre-wound bobbins for this kind of thing. It bunches up. It causes a lot of thread breaks with this. You get some nests happening underneath. So you're constantly readjusting your thread and rethreading your machine using the deco bobs. Now, the deco bobs are a good product. I've used them for many things, but for something like this, I have found that they give me a real pain in the butt, or a pain in the bud, whichever. So I decided to try winding some bobbins with their sewing thread. Their sewing thread is the same weight. It comes on these large cones, 3,000 meters, $3.49. They have about they have more than that. They have probably close to about 30 colors in this. So I wound several bobbins with this, and I didn't have one thread break. And I kid you not one problem using this in the bobbin to create this. I was impressed. So I immediately went online and ordered every one of their colors that they had in stock, and they should be coming first of next week. It's very economical, works really well. $3.49 for a spool of this, 3,000 meters. The deco bobs are about $13 for 12. That's not bad. Just a little under $1 a bobbin. There's about 1,300 meters, I think, on one of those bobbins, but it's not any good if it's going to bunch up on you, if it's going to break your thread, whereas this doesn't. So this is what I've been experimenting with, and I have found it to be an excellent product. So if you're not familiar with Monfil, look for my video comparing the Floriani embroidery thread with their embroidery thread, but also they have other sewing notions and other products as well. Their customer service is excellent. It's a Canadian business. It is shipped to you by Canadian Post, which can be a little bit of a problem because, you know, we're all spoiled by Amazon and Amazon Prime and get it pretty much the next day or 2 days. This will probably take a week to come. Canada Post is not known for its fast delivery on anything. If you order over $100 worth of product from this company, the shipping is free. And it doesn't take long to add up. They also have stabilizers. I have not done a review on their stabilizers, but they are excellent. I was using Floriani stabilizers because that's what my local quilt store sold. Good product, but very, very expensive. And their stabilizer is just as good and literally pennies a meter as opposed to dollars a meter. So I highly recommend this company, Monfil.ca, for their stabilizing products as well. So that's what I've been up to, and I can't think of anything else right now to tell you about. So I guess that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this catch-up video with the Idiot Quilter, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.